Assalamualaikum. So we are from Group 3. We are going to present about the applicability and limitation of international humanitarian law during armed conflict in MENA countries. So the first briefing will be given by Ms. Shahira.
MENA is an acronym that refers to the Middle East and North Africa region, and the region had faced so many conflicts since the fall of Ottoman Empire. A variety of factors explain the region's chronic insecurity and persistent susceptibility to armed conflicts, such as governance failures in most Arab countries, the still unfolding consequences of 2003 Iraq invasion led by the US coalition, and the complex relations and rivalries among regional powers. There are at least 7 out of 16 of the countries in the region that use military force in combat on their own territory, while other 11 used in the territory of other countries.
Hello, my name is Siti Munira and I'll be talking about the applicability of international humanitarian law or IHL. Now, IHL is still applicable in territory under the de facto control of armed groups. It still continues to apply and provide protections to civilians when non-state parties to armed conflicts control territory over an extended period of time. Now, even during armed conflicts, situation in which the law of war apply, international human rights law remain in effect. Example of treaties such as the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights (ICCPR) and the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhumane, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. Now, these treaties outlines guarantee for fundamental rights to which combatants and civilians are entitled to under the international humanitarian law. That is all for me. Thank you.
The IHL still applicable as the conflict is using customary international law. So, as example, the conflict between Yemeni allies and the Houthi force is governed by IHL, which is set out in treaties and the rule of customary international law. So, the most important treaty law is Common Article 3 to the Geneva Convention of 1949, to which all members of the coalition are party. Under the Common Article 3, it has set forth minimum standards for all parties to a non-international armed conflict. Yemen and some states participating in the armed conflict are also to party to Protocol 2 to the Geneva Convention, which further provide protection for combatants and civilians during non-international armed conflict. With that, the each party must respect and ensure respect for the law of war.
Hello, so we are going to the next point, that we must understand that even though IHL is applicable in Middle East and North Africa conflict, there are still limitations to IHL itself. So I am going to talk about the first limitation of IHL in Middle East and North Africa conflict. The first limitation is that not all states are bounded to the human rights treaties. It actually depends on the state itself, and in the view of human rights experts and courts itself, they say that states have an obligation to take steps in to protect the rights of persons living in their territory, but under the de facto control of non-armed group. So that's the first limitation of IHL in the Middle East and North Africa conflict. Let's go to the next one.
Hello, my name is Nabiha. So my part is the limitation of international humanitarian law. It's the matter of controversy whether human rights law also bind to the non-state actor. In this matter,
through the resolution adopted in United Nations organs such as Security Council, the General Assembly, or the Human Rights Council, states are notably have called on non-state armed groups that exercise de facto control over territory to comply with the human rights law in addition to respecting their international humanitarian law obligation. However, the applicability of human rights law to the non-state armed groups is an issue that remains unsettled as there are absence of relevant treaty law and limited state practice. Moreover, while not state armed groups are able to refrain from violating basic human rights, there are still many that not have sufficient capacity to comply with the obligation deriving from human rights law, particularly the obligation to take positive measures to protect and fulfill the human rights. And it is difficult to conclude that all non-state armed groups has human rights violation as a matter of law. However, this approach has recognized the needs of the civilian population living under the de facto control of non-state armed groups may be warrant of the engagement of humanitarian and human rights organizations.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Izzuel Aiman Beton Said. My matric ID is 046872. So in this discussion, I want to talk about the internal conflict in Middle East and North Africa region, and I want to talk about the children soldier in Sub-Sahara Africa. And most of the children that were forced to be the military were abducted, and also in some cases some of them were also willingly to join the military, the soldiers, since they will be provided with food and clothes to as the daily survivor. And some cases also have been recorded that the children were abducted and forced to join the military. And there were few cases also where the female children were used by the military as the sexual slave, and surely they were sexually assaulted and violated. And more or less this also affected the children mentally and physically, and still international humanitarian law could not step into this conflict and stop this problem. That's all for me. Thank you.
In conclusion, the international humanitarian law is obviously has been applied in most of the armed conflicts in the world, but however, there are still limitations in its implementation because of the state's internal conflict as well as customary rules. For some customary law in the countries, societal strains can be improved by reintegration programs, where these programs must provide appropriate education and respond to emotional sufferings in order to provide practical solutions for individual society-wide growth. Thank you.